Hi, everybody. I'm Annemarie Jacir, talking to you today from Palestine. And first of all, I want to say congratulations to all of you for being selected to be part of Locarno 2020 this year. It's a really, of course, amazing festival and a really great program. And I'm very happy to have been selected to moderate or have this discussion with you. And initially, I thought maybe the discussion, the four films had something in common, which is really the poetry of them. I'm really happy with these that I got your films because I think all four of them are so poetic and intimate and really moving. So I consider myself lucky. And now that I'm seeing all of you, I think the connection really is good hair. The directors with good hair.
That's right.
Yeah. No, but I really, we're gonna have this discussion about each of your films, but I really want it to be a discussion with all of us. And I think you've all seen each other's films too. So, jump in at any time. I wish we were physically together. Obviously we can't be, but let's try as much as possible, to share. And I know it's really, when you make your film and you finally get it out there in the world, it's really hard not to be in front of the audience. But a lot of people will be watching this and they really want to, they want to hear a lot, from you. And I think also the discussion and the questions you have for each other as well would be a big part of that. So again, congratulations for Locarno and 2020. And if maybe we can start with each one of you, introducing yourself, in your film and saying maybe where you are at this moment as well.
Okay, so hello everybody. It's Samuel Patthey, one of the two directors of Peel, Écorce in French. Sylvain Monet, the other director, couldn't be here for this conversation, but I'm here and I'm happy to be here with all the other directors. And I'm right now in France to start the next project and to write the next project in a residency in Fontevraud. So that's about it.
Hello, I'm Tristan. I realized Trou Noir. I am based in Switzerland. I'm actually here in Valais, in the countryside. And I'm very happy to be selected to Locarno this year. It's a special year, so I'm very curious to see what happened in the festival. And that's it.
How's it going, everyone? I'm Darol, and I'm the director of I Ran From It and Was Still In It. And I'm currently in Los Angeles. I'm born and raised in LA, and I'm kind of in like the downtown area right now. But it's an honor to be here. I'm excited to join everyone and looking forward to the conversation.
I'm Pat Heywood. Hello, everybody. I'm the co-writer and director of Gramercy. And it really is filled with gratitude and an honor to be here with all of you and with such a bunch of amazing films. And my cat clearly is also here and is honored as well. And I'm in Crown Heights, Brooklyn.
Peace, family. I'm Jamil McGinnis, the other co-director and writer for Gramercy. I'm also based in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. I guess this has been home for the past 5 years. And I want to thank each and every one of you for your films. They've certainly moved me in a very profound way. And we all know how hard it is to, I guess, take a piece of yourself and make it visual. So the world truly needs your work. And I just want to thank you guys. And it's an honor to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, that's beautifully said. I think the world really needs your work right now. And you know what's interesting about this selection too is that we have 2 Swiss films and 2 American films. I think that was a random decision, but I find it also interesting because I think that, you know, the world is undergoing a very strange time right now, and really interested to know about your practice and your films, and how they are connected, you know, to what's going on now. Darol, you're in, what time is it in LA? It's
6 a.m. So 6:21.
okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. So should we start with you then, or do you want to wake up a little bit?
Start. I'm ready.
Okay. You want to, I thought maybe we could talk a little bit, if you could tell us a little bit about the journey of the making of your film, and how you came up, you know, in terms of the concept, and how you came to this film. It's not your first film, I know that, but if you could tell us a little bit about it, would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the origin of it, kind of, I had space to create it. I was a resident at the Echo Park Film Center out here in Los Angeles, California. And so I had a couple of months to kind of think about work and make something. But I had been collecting a lot of it. It's a kind of mix of found footage, and then kind of personal home recordings. And so I had been having the home recordings for a couple of years. My children were living out here with me, and before they moved with their mother to the East Coast, to Philadelphia, we spent the last month just recording kind of our everyday. Just, we wanted to spend our last month together, but we wanted to capture it. It was actually my daughter's idea. My daughter's a photographer and filmmaker herself, and she always saw me with the phone or doing little small edits in the phone, and she was really excited. She was like, "Hey, let's make a movie." And so we made the last month of our being together kind of this movie, and I had the archival footage, and it was just sitting there, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it. But while I was at the residency, I was supposed to shoot something, and it didn't really work out, and I needed to make something. And I had this footage, and I have been collecting archival footage. That's kind of what I've been doing for the last 3 or 4 years in terms of my practice. And I think the project just came together kind of in a very organic way, where I was able to kind of give voice to something that I hadn't been able to articulate. And it kind of came through in like the marriage between the found footage and the personal archival, you know, the personal home movie footage.
Yeah, and the archival footage from the opening, for example, that's from Take This Hammer, no, from the 1964 film. Did you imagine to start there, or I'm curious how, because you have, as you said, you have the archival footage, you have the home video, you have, I mean, you're mixing so many different things here. I'm curious how it really started to take shape.
Yeah, a part of my practice is really gaining a certain amount of depth with archival moments and kind of repurposing them. So I had been sitting with that documentary for a while, and I think even subconsciously, I was drawn to it. Prior to me making it, it was in Arthur Jafa's Love is the Message is Death, but I don't think I was aware of it explicitly. But AJ is someone whose work I admire, and I had sat with the film for quite some time, and I had just found that piece, you know, that moment, right? That kind of slither of a moment where I feel like the entire film is encapsulated in that opening, where you do have the family dynamic. You have, you know, presumably a father, presumably a child, and presumably a partner, right? And there's this moment of kind of profound joy between them, I think, just the dancing on the street. But it's also combined with this, you know, very like in-depth analysis from James Baldwin, where he's talking about kind of the existential experience of being Black in America, right? Of this, you know, feeling this total action, right? Where you can't get away from your lived experience. And for me, it was something I wanted to meditate on. Because oftentimes I think that comes across through dance. You know, we kind of, in Black culture, a lot of Black culture globally, dance is often associated with kind of this unparalleled, you know, form of expression, right? And for me, I wanted to kind of foreground that, but then I wanted to move away from it. And the whole film for me is an attempt to kind of present that total action through film, to kind of present or push the form, see if the form, the medium film, could express itself in the way that dance or music has expressed itself through in Black culture.
Yeah, and with music, you know, the film has an interesting. I mean, it's a sort of, you know, discussion of music, of jazz, and then there's the other music that you know, I guess the music for the film. Could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Music is central for me, especially jazz, right? Especially jazz, and we have some huge figures for me who aren't often in these mainstream conversations in and around jazz. Like Horace Tapscott is one, who's the co-founder of the Pan African People's Orchestra, and we actually hear him speaking, and I think it's important to have the music function in a couple different ways. So in some ways, it's a emotional register. In some ways, it's an internal monologue, right? And then in other ways, it's a moment of like brevity, or like this gap where you're allowed to kind of be lulled into kind of a deep meditation, and then you're snapped out of it, right? So I kind of just wanted music to function in several different ways to enable a kind of openness, right? I don't want to lock the viewer into, you know, one rigid way of thinking about the work, but I wanted to create a kind of openness that allowed for multiple types of readings and multiple meanings. So you have different moments saying different things, but then the music opening that space in between, where maybe it's not a direct comment on what you see. Maybe it's something that's completely a little jarring too.
Yeah, yeah. It's beautiful. It's beautifully done. I think you really succeeded in that feeling, and then creating that other space that exists, you know, inside of the film, in regards to all that. Does anyone else want to ask or jump in or say anything?
Yeah, Darol, I was very moved by your film, and one thing that really resonated with me about it, and it's something Jamil and I have actually been talking about, is how, and something we explored in our film too, is how often constricted we are by language, which is also the primary tool of communication that we all have. And I was really quite amazed at watching the archival footage in your film, because I felt like I was watching it from inside of you. And I thought that was really amazing. It was almost like I was seeing images I had seen and hearing voices that I had heard before, but I was hearing them through you and watching almost like whatever you identify as yourself being formed and explored. And I'm curious if how that process for you changed through the process of finding and collecting footage, and if it changed. I'm sure it did. But.
No, that's a beautiful question, and thank you for even, I think, giving me the space to kind of talk about it. One of the aims I had in the piece was to make something specific but general, right? I've always tried to, in my work, that's something that I try to hold on to make something personal, but something that's also collective, right? So a lot of my thinking came from that center, right, of inviting you into something that's profoundly intimate, right, that comes from a profoundly intimate place, but then that could speak to a broader idea, or speak to generally like a broader feeling. I think for me, it was really coming about kind of moving through feelings and wanting to offer feelings to the viewer, right? So a lot of the work was drawn from the autobiographical tradition, right? So I'm trying to see how far I could push the autobiographical model, right? And you know, there's this huge autobiographical model in literature, you know, if we're talking about in like the US, right? That comes from like slave narratives or whatnot. But I also wanted to kind of trouble that, right? I wanted to kind of trouble, one, that history, one, that authoritative voice. And I wanted to see how expansive I could make it, right? So that's why I'm including not just, it's my voice, it's about my experience of loss and grief, but it's also beyond my experience of loss and grief. So you'll hear different voices speaking to different registers of their own personal loss. Like my personal loss is different. It was concerning my father and the loss of my children, right? And for me, that says something very central about Blackness, right? In terms of one's, the way in which one could kind of have possession of your family, right? You know, and this, in my particular experience in the US, right, that's something that's historically been denied, right? The idea that your family is, you know, your possession. Within this tradition, family could be ripped away from you at any second. You know what I mean? And so sitting with that was something I wanted to hold, but then I also wanted to include not just my personal narrative, but other personal and social narratives. So you'll get the interview portion with, you know, the rapper Styles P, you know, talking and kind of grieving for a moment, but he's actually talking about the loss of his daughter. You know, so there's it's a kaleidoscopic kind of marriage and kind of tapestry of loss and of grief, but of also profound joy. And I think it's something that I try to explore. It's like the closer we get to loss and grief, in death, it allows us to, you know, appreciate the profound beauty of life itself.
Yeah, I think that's a really a beautiful way to put it, and that the fact of being so specific, the film is so specific. That is absolutely what makes it universal. I mean, it really touched me in it because of its specificity. And I believe actually another thing with these films that all have in common is that they are so detailed and specific, that really this other feeling of something, as you said, collective, comes out of it. And I wanted to ask you just before we move a little bit, you know, another direction, but could you talk a little bit about the title?
Yeah, yeah. So I ran from it and was still in it is a borrowed title, and it's borrowed from a poet, a brilliant poet, a brilliant scholar, a brilliant theorist by the name of Fred Moten. And it comes from a book of poetry of his. And for me, you know, I was introduced to the work several years ago. But it as a phrase, I think it just encapsulates kind of this experience of, you know, so I had lost my father, and my two children had suddenly relocated across the country. And I think I was wallowing in those emotions and wallowing in that experience. And I was trying to not confront it, right? And I would go, so for me, I ran from it and was still in it is kind of about the impossibility of escape. You know, it's about the impossibility of, you know, forgetting. And it's about those qualities and those things that kind of linger, you know, despite our best, you know, intentions and actions to, you know, remove them from ourselves and remove this from our consciousness. So it's kind of just about the feelings that we're aware of and those things that we're not aware of generationally that kind of remain and sit with us, and that demand our attention, and demand a form of expression be given to their voice, their longings. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, poetry is, I always find I'm very much inspired by poetry, and it's a big part of my work. And I always find really there's poetry and cinema are so close in that attempt to try to capture a moment, to try to capture a feeling, to try to create and feel something unexplained even, and it brings me to now Pat and Jamil. You end your film. It's not a spoiler. I hope people have all watched the film that are going to watch this. But the beautiful the Langston Hughes at the end of your film. Can you let's start at the end.
Sure. Annemarie, I think there's something interesting. You said that poetry kind of is this language that is really tied to cinema, where I would even push that even further and say I think that, for me at least, poetry is actually much deeper and kind of is even the language to life. I think it kind of resembles life in a more authentic way, I think, away from what we consider the traditional narrative of trying to get from like an A to a B to a C, of trying to draw this perfect string for why events are supposed to occur, and then why it comes to a specific outcome. When kind of reflecting or looking at life personally, it never really fits that quote unquote narrative. So even to Darol's film, which moved me in such a profound way to have Darol create this language that I think so much of us have a hard time trying to find words for, but we can always associate feelings with them. I think when we kind of create those images and those sounds to kind of provoke that thought or that feeling, the closer we can get to our humanness. And I think that's actually something that I truly found across all these films. So yeah, again, thank you for sharing. But yeah, I guess to get to the Langston Hughes film, Pat and I kind of mused, and I guess very similarly, we look at our process very much through the lens of poetry. And kind of being someone who's a very big Nazim Hikmet fan, reading a lot of love poetry, a Nikki Giovanni fan, and kind of just trying to find this language that can kind of speak to something that isn't inherently right in front of your face, but something that's deeper within, which is kind of what we were looking for within our film. I think I remember Pat even stumbling across this recording of his, and because we were kind of going through a bunch of poems, just reading a couple, internalizing them, trying to see what would work for that moment. And I remember when Pat stumbled across it, and he was just like, "This is it." And because at that moment of the edit too, we were kind of trying to find what the language of that portion was, when our character Shaq was trying to reconcile with a very deep feeling that he has been escaping or trying to get away from, and didn't want to look at head on, or at least try to deal with within his day-to-day, within his like the life in front of him, and him having to reckon with this internal feeling. So yeah, I can let Pat speak to it as well, but that was kind of, it was one of those feelings. As soon as we heard the recording together, it was one of those feelings that it just didn't need an explanation through verbiage, the same way that when you internalize any piece of art form, if it moves you in a way that can not have words attached to it, we certainly took that ethos and followed that and said, this is exactly what it needs to be.
Yeah, that beautifully said, Jamil. And I think to build on that, I think for us, the film was basically us exploring the difference between somebody's material reality and then the metaphysical, conscious life, that some consciousness within somebody, and how what do those two things look like together in cinema, and what are the limits of them? And I think at that moment in the film, it's the first time we wanted to be guided by something outside of Shaq's head. So much of the film is that through the score and the images going from black and white into color, it's all coming from how he sees the world and in a given moment, and how he is perceiving something, and what he's able to see and what he's able to not see. And I think that moment in the film, why we really wanted to kind of broaden out, it was almost Jamil and I wondering, how far can cinema go? You know, what can cinema capture? And so it's the first moment in the film where there's another voice other than Shaq trying to contextualize his journey through this, you know, single weekend within Piscataway. And so it was almost like, can we do it through this? Can we do it through here? And not necessarily aiming to answer. And that's what's so beautiful about poetry, is that you don't have to aim for answers, you aim for questions. You know, it's and I think that was ultimately where just the image of the river, it is something you can look at, and it constantly changes. It's you know, we see it in the film 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and it's moving. It's always moving. It's always, whether you're close to it, you're far from it. And to hear Langston Hughes talk about how the human experience, not just his own life, but the lives before and the lives that will be after him, are also that river. It just felt like it felt like the only way that we could contextualize that walk through the field that Shaq is going through to kind of find his own center of consciousness.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's quite effective, and the feeling, you know, this you know, that you're dealing with this, you know, deep loss as well, this feeling of loss in the film, and the grief around that. You guys have worked together before? How did you, I mean, it's such a personal film. It feels so personal. It doesn't feel like a film of co-directors. So I'm very curious about your relationship together and how you work.
Yeah, I mean, man, to try to sum that up in a very short amount of time, it kind of, it makes my mind go. Well, yeah, so our relationship began professionally. We worked at an agency together, and kind of after a couple conversations realized that we have very similar interests in the things that we want to explore through cinema. And from that, I guess, to fast forward, I guess I guess we can kind of chat with this, Pat, with like the breadth of Gramercy, where, so Gramercy essentially is, Gramercy is almost everything under the sun for this very specific pocket within New Jersey, and specifically Piscataway, New Jersey, where a group of friends kind of created this bond, this brotherhood, kind of this everything, this lens into a world in which was so rich with culture and dance and kind of this expression that I think were very heavily or hard to tie to words. And so I went to school with one of the guys that you actually see in the film. I went to Florida A&M in Tallahassee, Florida. It's a historical Black college, and we went to school together. And after taking a trip out to Piscataway, New Jersey for one day, it was mesmerizing. From kind of what even Darol spoke of, like to the language of dance, where in New Jersey there's this really big subculture of Jersey dance music, which kind of is very heavily influenced by like Baltimore club music and has this very fast EDM type pace. And you kind of then see that movement through their bodies and how fast they also move. And it's this area that kind of had so many different languages that weren't just expressed through words. And from the moment of being exposed to that, I was drawn in. And it was around the time, it was in 2016, where we kind of started, you start to see these polarizing images of young Black men being gunned down or killed by the police. And this language or this thought and this feeling of not being able to attach words to something is what birthed Gramercy. And Pat and I have collaborated on a couple of projects before then, and it was essentially me coming to him saying, I'm trying to find a language for this feeling that I have inside, and trying to then give space to let those feelings live and let those feelings be exposed to the world, so others can also feel what that language is and try to reconcile and find comfort within themselves as well. And being very interested in kind of what the psyche in America, and specifically for a young Black male within the fabric of the US, and what that looks like from one's consciousness. I think so many times, or I think through the media, where there's this painted perception of what it means to be Black in America, and kind of having the specificity of what you're supposed to fit in order to be Black. And I think a lot of those conversations that would circle within my group, a lot of them kind of didn't circle what the psyche of what it means to be Black kind of was in those conversations, and what it means to feel and what it means to kind of become deep rooted in what those feelings are, and essentially wanting to create space for that, I think is ultimately what we wanted to do with this film. And to Pat, what he was saying earlier was not to answer too many questions or act like we have the answers to them, but to kind of pose these questions in a light for other people to kind of sit with as well. Because although I think lots of Gramercy had to shine and show the beauties and some of the traumas of what it's like to be someone with melanin in their skin and the fabric of the US, I think it also started to speak to a larger human conversation of what it just means to exist in this world. So yeah, it all started from I guess this feeling of trying to grapple with emotion that didn't really have words attached to it. And from there, it kind of just
Yeah, and to build on that a little bit and just kind of talk about how Gramercy is both Jamil and I. You know, this was our fourth film together. I've never made a movie without Jamil, and explaining our process is really, again, it's like the boundaries and the beauty of language. I feel like I can't quite put it into words why we work so well together, and yet it's, you know, artistically Jamil is my other half, and yet, like I think when I look at Gramercy, I see Jamil as a whole, and I see me as a whole, and then I see us as a whole together. And a lot of people have asked me, you know, oh, are you going to co-write and co-direct stuff forever, and what is that process like? Is it ever challenging? But, you know, for me, it's actually just it's a way to let the ego drop out of the self. And how, you know, art, I think there's a sometimes it's a conception and a misconception that, you know, the ego drives art. And I don't necessarily view art that way. I think that beautiful art can be centered without ego. And it doesn't mean that Jamil and I don't have long, challenging discussions about something he might feel versus how I feel. But, you know, it is amazing how we go through these peaks and valleys in these discussions. Just when I think about, you know, from every step of the process, from the trip out to Piscataway that Jamil talked about, to writing a kind of outline of a script, to trying to raise money for the project, to shooting it, to editing it. It's like all these different versions of me, all these different versions of Jamil, and all these different versions of us together. And it's, you know, I look at the film, and it feels a little bit like I'm, you know, looking through a time capsule at Jamil and I's friendship in a lot of ways. Because I think Jamil, you know, I think more than anything else, he's one of my dearest friends, and I have such immense respect for him as an artist, and I think that's where our relationship starts, and everything else kind of comes from that. Whether it's positive or negative, I'm less interested in, and I'm more just interested in the wholeness of it. So that's kind of my my esoteric view on our directing relationship.
The feeling is very much so mutual. And with that being said, honestly, I think I'm not sure if any of the other directors have worked or at least collaborated on a project with another being. I highly recommend it. I think to everything that Pat said, it is this very interesting dynamic of being able to look in the mirror of oneself and then also find yourself within the other person which you're working with. And that's so much, I think, of Pat and I's relationship, where, to what Pat said, whether it's good or bad or positive or negative, it's I think there's things within our relationship that I've been able to see about myself, because those things are presented forward by, having conversations that are really tough, explaining why one doesn't like the shot versus another. And I think that those things, you start to find your truest self and what it is that you, the thing that you kind of gravitate towards versus not gravitating towards. And I think with having that other person in the room with you, that person can almost become a soundboard for one's thoughts. And I think it's interesting that Pat and we've even had this discussion within the past couple of weeks, where it's like, it's a little bit less of what that thing to be good or to be bad is, and to have the freedom of expression to find out one's life and what their true purpose happens to be, and giving room for that. And I think that that's kind of what our relationship has truly been founded on, and kind of what we make sure to do even moving forward with any idea, project, and even aside from film itself, as Pat was saying, just through life. I mean, I think it's if anything, Pat, I think this is a time to tell you my appreciation for you and our relationship as a filmmaking duo. But no, everything that Pat said, it's
What a platform to do it on.
spot on. Man, what a wonderful one. We should maybe set up a page after this.
Yeah, exactly.
Set up a GoFundMe for that, for the next project.
No, but that's really, I mean, it's a really beautiful thing, and a beautiful way to work. And it's also terrifying. I mean, I can imagine it's just terrifying. I don't know if I could work that way myself. I always say I could never co-direct. I have a very strong, strong collaborators, but to co-direct, I think is a whole other experience, and one that I'm not familiar with myself. But let's
It's never too late.
It's never too late. That's true.
Never too late.
We'll see. I'll be professing my love at some platform,
Exactly.
some festival somewhere.
Everything changes.
Yeah,
Oh,
we want to hear
man.
about the fights later.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Tristan, we shift into your film now, because it's interesting too, in the way that it's about the same kind of this intimacy and particularly around friendships and male friendships, and I'd love to talk to you a little bit. I don't see you. Oh, there you are. About that, and you have really such remarkable performances from your whole cast. I'd love to know how you worked with them, and how you got the performances that you did. Are they people that you knew from before, or did you come to them after writing? It's as if the camera just, really, you've done a fantastic job. The camera just doesn't exist around them, and it's beautiful.
Yes, I can try to speak about that, but my English is not so fluent as the other, so be patient, please. I wrote the script, and I didn't have any character for my movie, and at the end of the process, I decided to stop like schedule for the shooting, and I decided to look for the people I wanted to work with, and I met Vincent. His real name is Martin Barras, and in the skate park, and I was very fascinated by him because he was very transparent, and I did some exercise with him, and it was very generous, but the way he spoke to his life, about his life. And I decided that it was my main character, and I spent a lot of time with him skateboarding because I used to be a skateboarder myself. It was like my real big passion for the teenager time, and so I skate with him, and I spent some time with him, and I wrote a lot of things hearing about his story, and I mixed with my own story because this script is about it's inspired by my own story, and then I really wanted to have like a group, not a fake group. I wanted to have like a real group, so I observed a lot of his friends in the skate park, and I met them, and then I composed my script, meeting the other people, like for example Tilo, the small guy. He came at the very end of the story, just 2 weeks after, 2 weeks before the shooting. I didn't have this character in my script, but I found him, and I said, oh, that's the little guy of the group, and he gives an energy, and so I update my script at the latest time. So yeah, that was one of the response of your question. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so you approached it in a very open way, and it's interesting that this little boy came in to the story so late. Did you do were you doing sort of improvisational work with them? Were you like when you were building, you went to them and then you started to concretize whatever the story, the script? Did that come out of any exercises with them, or purely, as you said, observation?
But at the very beginning of the project, I thought that I will find some young people I will be able to improvise. But actually, during the shooting time, I was very precise. I think I was more precise than I thought, because I get inspired by their character, but it's as I said, it's a mixture between myself and my memories and my time and their energy, their group, and so I needed to be precise on different scenes, and but I get inspired by their words and their movements and the way to move just before the shooting time, when I spent some time with them. So it was kind of a mixture, but during the shooting time I was shocked myself to be so precise, because I had the desire to use more improvisation.
Yeah, that's interesting. And what kind of difficulties did you find did you have with that, or in general?
What kind of difficulties?
With shooting, with the making of this film. I mean, with this maybe with the actors, with you were precise, which is a good sign. But just any kind of what did you find were the challenges? Since
but as I said before, the main, I'm not sure I will do it again, but I for schedule question, I had to say, okay, I'm shooting in this time. So, and I met them at the very late on the very late time, and I was very inspired by them on the energy of the group. So I made the latest version of the script at the in my sense too late. So I was kind of searching a bit what kind of scene I wanted to shoot, and in which way I wanted to shoot them, and the shooting was already started. So that was one of my like mistake. I mean, I would if I do it again, I will take more time to write and to rehearsal with them, and what other difficulties. Yeah, then it was more like organization. It's not about artistic, more about organization, because I like to make my movie with friends. Some friends are not like some well experienced, so sometimes like it was kind of big set with a lot of people and a lot of night shooting, so it was difficult to have like everyone very awake during the night. So it was, yeah, sometimes difficult to be very conscious of the danger during the shooting time. Yeah.
Like a danger of night because danger directly to do with your location, which I wanted to hear from you also about. What kind of danger?
For
I'm
example,
imagining wolves when you said that.
no, it's not like, it's like very for example, when we shot 2 or 3 nights, one after other, then the actor become like very tired, and then and the people from the crew become very tired also. So when you drive the actor to go to the set to another, because you know, in the tunnel there is this place with the tunnel, it was actually 5 different places, not very in the same location, so we had to take the car, and it's everyone is very tired, and we have to be very, yeah, as I said, because it was friends. It's not very professional, the way we did it, so sometimes it was kind of the danger that we had. Yeah.
And I mean the location that you, at the beginning of it, there's like a mention of the army, like it's a military area, or what's can you tell us a little bit about the space?
But actually it's a complete invented area. It's just it used to be like a place with a big how do you say that, stones that you put some stone, you
quarry,
yeah,
stone quarry,
something like this, yeah. And yeah, at the beginning I wanted to make it like a mysterious place, so I decided to put like some military truck who pass like this, because when we are in the hall with in the tunnel with the guy looking for the dog, we are like more like conscious about something who could happen, and it create like a mystery that I don't use. But anyway, for me, it was kind of small pieces that you put before to create like a kind of tension after that, you know. But it was just this idea and nothing else.
Could I jump in really fast, Annemarie?
Of course.
Just after I talked a lot about the egoless self, I'd like to bring it back to Gramercy for a second, because because I think there's an interesting contrast to draw with something Tristan was just saying, where it's interesting for our film. I saw a lot of synergy between our films. Obviously they're very, very different, but they I thought had some interesting things in common. The biggest, hearing you talk about it, being the kind of meeting a real person who you kind of put a little bit of yourself and take a lot of their story in, and then kind of see their friends. And it was similar to us, where all the people that you see on the screen in our film are just playing a version of themselves. And but Jamil and I had almost the opposite experience on set, I think, that you did, where we had scripted the film. I mean, we must have written short over the course of a year and a half, and then when we got on set, it was actually it became much more improvisation than I think Jamil and I had prepared for. And it's just interesting to hear that we had very similar processes as far as the development stage, but then on the set, both our instincts were shifted in opposite directions. Yeah.
So let's talk about our last film, Peel, Écorce. You are two co-directors. Speaking of co-directors, but you are alone today.
Yes.
I hope that's not because of the film.
No. Just professional.
So your film, it's so interesting to me in terms of the conception of it. It is so alive. It is so evocative, but really with this, devastatingly simple in the image, which is, I found it, very interesting and quite strong at that how evocative and devastating it is with this thing. And I'd love to hear you talk about, the journey of it. How did it, how was it born?
So the basic idea was actually my grandmother went to a senior residency, and I was visiting her, I don't know, every 2 months or something like that. And I felt like when visiting her, I saw this kind of very specific place and this brand new world to me, which is always here, but kind of is not really shown to people. So I basically started with this feeling that I wanted to show this place to the audience and show how people live there. And I started just to draw stuff, and then I felt like, okay, I want to work again with Sylvain, which is the other director. And we were together studying in Lucerne at an animation school. And we did several movies, like short movies together at school. And we tested a bit this kind of structure of movie making together. So I asked him if he was ready to do a professional movie together, and he just straight after jumped in, and we started the process of asking senior residencies if we could draw there together, like the two directors going there with the sketchbook, very simple, and just walk through a senior residency and try to catch some specific moments of their life. And that was kind of the basic idea of the movie. So we just collected a lot of sketches, like observation sketches, and tried after 1 year of collecting those drawings to just put them one after the other to crystallize this feeling that we both had from those places. That's kind of the process we had.
And did you at some point, you were sketching, you were never, were you photographing or filming at all?
No.
That was never an idea.
No, because it's very different. Like when you have a sketchbook, then it's so different to a camera, or to be there is actually even entering their privacy and entering their private life. And I mean, it's like someone is going through your home and having a camera and making photos of you. And with sketching, we had this ability to be very like in the background and just being immersed in that place. And no, we hadn't many photos or video references. It's really 99% are observation drawings.
And how did sound? I'm very curious. The sound. How did that? It's the sound design is fantastic, by the way. I mean, it's really.
Thank you.
How, did that come in later, or was that during process of sketch?
So it's thank you very much, first of all, for that, because I'm very happy that you mentioned sound, because we had like a very precise idea of sound design and how we want the thing to be done, and even about the music we were using. So it's super cool story, because we are both director are living in a very small town like Fribourg in the middle of Switzerland, and we ask the producer that is also living like a kilometer from our home, and he told us that we could ask a sound designer from the same hometown where also the residency is. So basically, Florian Patthey made the sound design and Julien Gobe made the music, and everyone was from the same town. But the most funny part is that the sound design, the studio is about 500 meters from the senior residency. So the sound designer could go, like he went 1 week really recording there on site to have the specific sound, the specific atmosphere of the place, and really catching everything that we needed for the sound, because nothing is recorded on set normally for animation, but here we could like go again and record everything we wanted. So that was really nice, and he made a great job, and the musician also.
Yeah, absolutely. And did it change because of that, because of sound? I'm curious, if, or
No,
it was
no.
already.
I was working basically a long time during the process of filmmaking on the sound concept. So I had really, we had like together a really good sketch of the sound before going to the sound designer. So the sound was kind of set, and basically we came and showed the sound sketch of the movie, and then of course he made something much more better and professional than we did, but it was kind of very clear what we wanted and how we wanted it. And because we were there like for 1 year drawing those people, we really knew how the sound should be, or how the atmosphere is, and how we wanted it.
Yeah. 1 year together, and it's, maybe you said this, I didn't quite follow though. It's both of your sketches.
Yeah. So basically we sketched. We tried when we went there to sketch together, but just going there together, and then we split off, and one goes to the, I don't know, to the garden, and the other goes to the reception or anything like that, and we drew like 3 hours, 4 hours, and then come together, and after 1 year of drawing, we decided, okay, it's kind of, we have the materials we want, and we just tried to analyze the materials, and just it didn't matter of if I did the drawing or he did it. It was just trying to get a style, a visual style together, and then using the best drawing for the scenes we wanted.
Yeah. So I got a little note that we have to wrap it up, but what I would like to ask you, I start with you because you were the last, and then we'll go backwards. But you know, if the creative process is a transformative one, if we evolve and we change, are you different? Have you changed after making this film?
Yes, I think I've changed, and hope, how do you say, developed myself during the process of filmmaking. And how I change is maybe to just take a bit more time, and yes, just enjoy the moment. like the movie was kind of also a philosophical and a critique to the society today, and it was a beautiful thing to do and to show. So yeah, I hope I really went through a I don't know how to say, like, to an evolution, I don't know, to this.
Yeah. And Tristan, if I ask you, I'm going to ask you all the same, the same thing.
Yes, for me it was like you know, the starting point was to deal with the skateboard teenager time that I used to practice. So it was kind of digging into this period of my life and analyze and create like to make unconsciousness conscious aware actually. And now yeah, I'm like very happy to had the occasion and the pretext to meet those people, the actor. I had a great time with them, and it gives me good memories. And I think it's a step backward to see what choice you did in your life. So to answer to your question, yeah, for me it was something who make me go further.
Yeah.
Darol has been spotlighted.
Sorry.
Somebody's choosing
Sorry.
the spotlight, not me.
An omniscient guide.
I'll take the time to say, I think, yeah, I would hope so. I would hope that I have changed, right? I would hope that I'm a much more honest person, that I'm unflinchingly able to look at myself in a way that is without like reservations. And that is, I like the idea, I think Pat brought it up a couple times in terms of like the ego falling out. But yeah, I just hope I'm just a more loving person after this. You know, all the things that are in the film have always been kind of within me. I just think sometimes they maybe have been innate, or I haven't activated them in the way that I should have. But I think, you know, I have a much more profound appreciation for my loved ones, you know, my children, not just my father, but also my mother, right, and friends, right. And I isolated for quite a bit, and I think on the other side of that process and on the other side of the film, I think I'm making strides in just being an honest person and a better friend and a better, you know, son, brother, comrade, you know, just someone who maybe can tap into like that deep reservoir of like feelings in a way that, you know, sees and identifies sensitivity as like a powerful resource rather than a deficit.
Yeah. Also, I see that killer sheep poster you got in the background, Darol. Love it.
Saw that too.
But yeah, no, same. I mean, I think I truly look at film as pretty much as a mirror. I think that film truly gives us the ability to stare at one's older self. I mean, I think that we're evolving every single day, but I think from the moments in which, and at least I can speak personally with, like, when we were writing the scripts, when we were in pre-pro, when we were shooting, when we were editing, when we were going through music, when we were even coloring, I think you're staring at older pieces of yourself and what that older self wanted in that moment for why you made that decision. And I think, you know, to kind of muse and sit with those things for however long your project takes. Yeah, I think you're kind of unpacking and maybe in some ways reconciling with who your older self was. And so yeah, I personally would hope that I have changed. I think that very similar to kind of what everyone was saying is just I have seen myself grow in places that I think before this project I kind of refrained from, or I didn't want to kind of go there personally. And yeah, I think that I've certainly become a person that is finding a way in which to use my personal emotion and my sensitivity in ways that I think are really directed and channeled as opposed to it feeling as if, you know, there are moments, of course, it's I think that's the roller coaster of the human experience where, you know, there's moments where just it kind of, things feel heightened and things feel mellow. And I think it's, the more we kind of exercise and understand what those feelings are, I think the more of a balance we can find with it. And I think that's what I've at least certainly found with my experience.
Beautifully said, everybody. Yeah, I feel similarly. I feel like if you make a film and you don't think you've changed at the end of it, you might need to sharpen up your awareness a little bit, because it's such a deeply personal, deeply time consuming exercise. And I think it's truly amazing anytime anybody can make a movie about anything. For myself, I think the biggest change that I made was to stop looking backward and forward so much, and to try to really listen to myself in the present moment, and to just try to be as present as possible for every step of filmmaking. And I think with filmmaking, to Jamil, what you were saying, it's so vital, because you can get caught up in something you thought you wanted, or some expectation that you had. And I think the more you can drop that, and the more you can reflect on what you're going through in the present, and just give your attention and your awareness to what's in front of you, that's going to be the truest version of the art that you're trying to make. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think I've changed. I think I've changed from the beginning of this conversation to the end of this conversation. So you know,
Great. Very good.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well,
That's right.
thank you all. I really wish we had more time. I feel like we're just at the beginning of this, but I would love to have another few hours. But you know, there's a finger up. Can we go
Wait.
on? Can we get a
I just want to
Amanda?
thank you. I just want to thank you, Annemarie, for moderating this, but also, like, I'm just a fan of your work, and I would be remiss if I didn't kind of make that and highlight that point right now. Thank you for the work that you created, and it's
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that, and I want to thank you guys. Really, these films are really beautiful. I wish you all the luck with them. I hope the journey is long, and I really look forward to seeing more. But you know, congratulations. There is so much. Darol, what you said about honesty. The honesty in these films, and the heart and soul. This is why I said at the beginning, I feel really lucky that I mean, I haven't seen the other films, but these 4 that I got, I feel like there was a reason for it, and I'm very grateful to that. And so I want to thank you guys all. So I wish you guys all the best of luck. Thank you. Really thank you for sharing these films with me, and for making these films, and for all the heart and soul. And all the parts of yourself that you put in the film. It's really clear how much work and how much love went into them. So thank you and good luck, and I hope to meet soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Annemarie. Appreciate it. It's a
Thank you.
pleasure meeting you all.